Welcome to our Week 18 review episode of Good Teams Win, Great Teams Cover. We're here, we made it to the end of the NFL regular season. It went by in a flash. 18 weeks, doesn't feel like that at all. But Joe, Byron joining me as usual here at Good Teams Win, Great Teams Cover. Happy end to the regular season, and we're about to start the playoffs. How are you both doing? How were your Week 18s? A shorter one as well, because we're here on Monday recording instead of Tuesday, which is a change for us.
Yeah, it's weird. I can't even blag that there's Monday Night Football, and I just want to take the night off to hang out with you, babe, because my wife knows I'm recording a podcast, and I can't pull that one over her eyes. I mean, Thursday Night Football, I managed to get away with it last week. I'm going to sack it off. I know it's last week, but it was an eventful last week of the season. I think not super wild. A lot of things felt decided somewhat early, but it was a fun week.
You can call this like a mini bye between us recording our playoff preview. Like we've got the mini bye this week, so our playoff super wildcard weekend preview should be top notch.
It's to recover from some injuries, some voices going, all of that kind of thing for the playoffs. So
it's been a long old season. I'm rough. My voice is gonna go at some point. So my job is just gonna be like controlling the screen and directing traffic. I think by the time we get 20 minutes into this.
I think it's also flown by as well, though, because I was like looking at some of the stats for our picks through the year, and it was like the Broncos Dolphins was like week 3, but that only feels like a couple of weeks ago. So I was just like, oh yeah, when Miami absolutely dominated Broncos was 15 weeks ago. So it's flown by, but it's been a good year, and I'm actually looking forward to playoffs. It feels like the teams I wanted to be in, and it feels like all the games are going to be competitive. So this week worked out.
I mean, we'll touch on it in our preview in a couple of days' time, but the NFL script writers got what they wanted for these wild card matchups. There's stories galore for those, and we'll get to them as we go, I guess. We're going to talk through the games that mattered because there was some that didn't have anything on the line. We're going to go over our FourFold challenge and our final FourFold challenge and ATS picks competition. Round those off for the season. We'll have a touch in our bets went for week 18. Little fantasy game day review. And we're going to talk about all the potential changes as well for teams. Some have made some. We've seen 2 changes, 2 coaching changes or firings today. Last night, I guess, as well. One was last night, one was today. And we'll talk a little bit of that on Black Monday as well, plus any potential breaking news. And Joe might be able to give us some of the stats from our comps as we go. He's been doing such a good job of keeping them, so it might be interesting to touch on those as well while we're there. So let's dive into that. We'll start with our FourFold challenge because we'll cover the games that mattered the most. So my curse of the favourites continued in the FourFold challenge as I back the Eagles. I thought the Eagles would just take care of business against the Giants and force the Cowboys to win the NFC East. Turns out the Cowboys didn't need to win and to win the NFC East. They did do to secure the second seed, but the Eagles were well and truly hammered by the Giants. This wasn't the Giants sneaking one. They were 24-0 up at one point. Everything that could go wrong did go wrong for Philadelphia. Let's start. A.J. Brown injury looked a bad one, but it's not ACL by the sounds of it. It's let's see what's happening tomorrow. And also Jalen Hurts, how he's not fractured that finger is insane. It looked absolutely disgusting. Why has it gone so wrong for the Eagles these last kind of 6 or 7 weeks from 10-1, beating the Chiefs and getting back on track to 11-6, and now having to go on the road in the playoffs as a wildcard team?
I think ultimately, they were getting by and they're being found out. They replaced the OC, they replaced the DC. Both of them went and got head coaching jobs and both done good jobs as well, to be fair to Shane Steichen and I was going to call him Jim Gannon, Jonathan Gannon. And, it felt like a lot of the weeks, even early in the season, they scraped by the Patriots week 1. And it felt like there's so many of their wins were like, that could have went the other way. And, because they're a good franchise, that's a sign of a winner, the win when they're not playing well. But they've never started playing better. And obviously they've lost players through injury. The defense is one of the worst in the NFL right now. They can't stop anybody. The Giants played all over them this week. Sidney Brown's out for the rest of the season, which might be 8 days, but it'd be out an entire season is kind of my point. I tore his ACL yesterday. And they can't stop anybody. The offense is one-dimensional at best. It doesn't feature AJ Brown, the best defensive player, enough. The run game's falling down. If you looked at them the second half of the season, I mean, it's obvious with the numbers, they're not a playoff team.
Yeah, that point on the defense in particular, that pass defense there's only the Washington Commanders that have given up more yards per game through the air than the Eagles have over the course of the season. Eagles giving up over 250 yards a game through the air. That secondary is a mess, and I think as well it's a combination of that pass rush has slowed down as well, so they're not getting to the quarterbacks either. So you're having to ask that secondary to try and hold up longer, and they're just not capable of doing it. Joe, is there any way at all the Eagles can get back on track and make a run in the playoffs?
I'm not sure. They're a kind of team I don't want to just rule out and just say they're gone. But like the last 5 or 6 weeks, any other team you would be like, yeah, this team's going to go out in the first week. I think it helps who they've got in the next round. Well, they've got in the first in the wild card against the Buccaneers, who didn't look good themselves. So I know what we talk about next. So there's a possibility they could sneak that, win that, and then anything could happen. You've still got the base of a good team, but I think obviously see how Hurts gets it by with his fingers. But I think that just defense is not, like Byron said, it's just not looking great. And against anyone, a good team with a good offense is just going to take advantage. And I think they had an injury in the linebacker as well. Blankenship got injured as well, and see how long that is. And he's important, but he's not like he's a game changer. But he's still, for that defense, they're one of the best. So I don't want to rule them out because they were getting by lucky in the first 10 weeks where they were scraping them wins. Could they be in between where they were then and where they are now, and could that win a few weeks? But I still think that we'll be backing them in the first wild card. So I'm going to say, yeah, I think my prediction they're going to get knocked out in the wild card. But I also wouldn't be surprised if they sneak that victory, and then who knows? It's you've still got good players on that offense, but right now it's a struggle for them. And I think we mentioned about the head coach. I believe if they get knocked out next week, is he definitely certain to remain? Just how bad it's gone. I think that's worry for the Eagles.
That was going to be my next question. Is what does Sirianni? Because he's going to be under a lot of pressure. The noise in Philadelphia, if you've seen from the fans, has been going for weeks. Even when they were 10-1, they weren't happy, and that might be a Philly thing. But it's gone disastrously wrong. And yeah, is there a case to say, look, you got to Super Bowl, so they got to the playoffs, got to Super Bowl, and let's say they get beat next week by the Buccaneers. Is there a case to say Sirianni goes? Because I think the expectations here for Philly was certainly got to at least get to the championship game again and be competing with San Francisco as the two nailed-on best teams in the NFC at the start of the season.
And they haven't been destroyed by injury. Like, their best players haven't missed half the season like some teams have. You look at what the Browns have put up with. The Ravens have seemed to lose a player every week for the first half of the season. And it was, I don't want to say a Super Bowl or bust, but you get to the you get to the Super Bowl and nearly win the Super Bowl. Don't lose any key players, really. And, Jalen Carter, they got the draft steal, the best pick in the draft. I forget the edge rusher who, they took 32-ish.
Nolan Smith, wasn't it? Yeah.
Nolan Smith. Again, another good value pick. It's all there for them to repeat. What has, Sirianni done to improve things this year? He hasn't. And does he, try and replace Yossi and DC and get more experienced heads in there? I don't know quite what he could plan, but I kind of think something has to change. And I think it's quite a common head coach thing of, well, I'm not going, so one of you is.
Well, they already changed it. DC, didn't they, halfway through the year with Patricia. Yeah. And I think it's one of them, that's the kind of move where, I would be surprised if it goes, but that just adds on top of it that you got rid of your DC who, the defense weren't playing amazing, but they were still, I know they got blew out by the 49ers and then the Cowboys, and the players lost confidence in him, but, to change to Matt Patricia, who's not done anything really as a defensive coordinator, without Bill Belichick holding his hand, it's that's certainly not worked. And obviously that kind of decision is that's another reason why he could go. I'll still be surprised if it does, but if there's one team to do that out of the league, it would be the Eagles to be like, there's one person to go out the main three people, and he's the least effective, it feels like.
Yeah. And I think there's just bits of the things that were strengths for the Eagles, particularly last year, are weaknesses now. And what's probably one that's a huge worry if you're an Eagles fan, that offensive line's become a liability, and you've got such experience there as well.
Yeah.
Kelsey's dropped off a cliff.
Yeah.
His play, he's going to the Pro Bowl. Kelsey's dropped off a cliff. Lane Johnson hasn't looked like Lane Johnson. They are really, really struggling. And obviously it's probably, they fell fortunate in, by getting into, by finishing the 5th seed, you get to play the winner of the AFC South. Isn't great. But let's move on and talk about that then, because the Eagles are going to be matching up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who this was a slog for Tampa to beat the Panthers 9-0. Byron covered for your favourite. Last 2 weeks in a row now that Tampa have looked poor. The fact that the Panthers offered no threat. But the Buccaneers in kind of 2 key games that they could have sealed this last week against the Saints, didn't turn up, didn't play very well here at all. Where we at with the Bucs? Have the Bucs got lucky as well in the fact that they're going to be playing an Eagles team that's not at it?
Sorry, you go ahead, Joe.
Oh, cheers. It's been the last 2 weeks, hasn't it, with the Buccaneers? They didn't even, they got blown out by the Saints, so it's not a good look. I think Baker Mayfield probably had his worst game for a while against the Panthers. I think I saw the stat. He didn't throw a pass over 10 yards, or air yards. So, it's not great going into the year. Is it what the Bucs have been doing all this year, where they've been hot, cold, and they're just suddenly going on a cold run? So could they, if it was like 3 weeks ago, I would have been nailed on, the Buccaneers are going to win this easily. I think it's going to be a bit more closer now. It looks like Mayfield's got a few injuries. I think I've heard his ribs. It looked like he was limping around during that game as well. So it's just 2 teams where they're probably, it's lucky that they're playing each other. Like you just mentioned, that it's probably worked out for both. And, you have one win in the playoffs, and then who knows after that, it's any given Sunday. So, I think they've obviously got a chance. I think they've definitely got to play better on offense, because I think if they play that against the Eagles, even though the Eagles is not a great defense, I think, you would expect the Eagles to at least score, 15-20. So you've got to put a bit more on tape and try and get Evans and Godwin more in the game. But we'll see what happens. I think they can turn it around, but not confident in the team. I think both of these teams are not favourites to get to the NFC Championship. Yeah,
I think whoever ends up playing this team in the this will be the team that I guess potentially is this be the team that the Niners might play unless there's an upset on the other side in the divisional round. That the Niners must be licking the lips thinking that you're going to get one of these 2 teams at home. I think probably the Buccaneers need to balance things a little bit. Yeah, Baker's, and let's not look past that. Baker's had an incredible season. Bearing in mind where expectations were. I think he's led this team really, really well, and we've shouted it out enough times. I know I certainly have. I've been really, really impressed with him. They have needed to take a little bit off him. They run the ball. They barely run the ball. I think they did manage to run for 100 yards as a team on Sunday against the Panthers, but they're on, I think, 89 yards a game. I think if they're going to have a chance against the Eagles, they need to get that running game going a little bit more as well, and take it off Baker, which I think the Eagles have also been giving up yards on the ground as well. So it's not as if that one stout rush defense that they had is not great as well from an Eagles perspective. I think they're giving up something like 130 yards a game on the ground. So it's one that you can get at, and if they make a commitment to the run and balance things, it might help Baker a little bit. And it just feels like they've been going so well and then just kind of just stopped, and it completely stopped. So we'll see if they can get going again. But
with how poor they were yesterday as well, the Bucs, they were one DJ Chark reach from maybe being out of the playoffs. He fumbled fumbled into the end zone 6 inches from a touchdown at 0-0 in the second quarter. And if that goes in, that's entirely different game because the Bucks didn't look like they were just waiting to be sparked into action. They looked like they were asleep. Like, I don't know if they would have recovered. Just saying there was another flag on a TD. I don't recall it, I must say. But I'm guessing that was another Panthers one.
Yeah, it was just before the fumble, actually, from Young. So it was the play before they got the first touchdown since Christmas Eve, but it was flagged for, I think it may be offensive holding, or can't remember what it was. But yeah, it was. Oh, no, I think it was illegal formation. So, but yeah, they could have gone 7-6 down in the fourth quarter, and it would have been squeaky bum times then.
Yeah. So, if you're struggling that much to get past the Panthers, I think, any of the other 4 NFC teams would have been delighted to get the Bucks or the Eagles, basically, at this point. And like Joe opened with, the kind of lucky they got each other because somebody's getting a second game.
Yeah. I mean, just quickly touch on the Panthers. Panthers 2-15. They, would have earned the number 1 overall pick, but they've given it away to the Bears. Any fits for them and who takes over from Frank Reich? Obviously, he was suspended, fired earlier in the season. Any one that makes sense, or is that an attractive proposition, Carolina, at the minute?
I think it's the least attractive job, right?
Yeah, I would say it's because you've got, you haven't got a first round pick. First off, you're getting a squad who had just finished last in the league.
Quarterback who looks broke.
Yeah, exactly. So they go get an offensive head coach, but you thought they had that with Frank Wright. Yeah, I don't think it's
defensive for all the wrong reasons, but yeah.
Yeah. But then it's just, and then you've got owner who, doesn't stay out of it. It feels like he tries to take control too much, with the reports, especially taking Bryce Young when everyone else wanted, well, not everyone, but other people want CJ Stroud. So it's I'd be wary. I could see like a first-time head coach, or maybe a head coach who doesn't think he's going to get another opportunity taking that. But if you look at someone who, if a few teams are after them, then they're not going to choose the Panthers over all the other ones currently. So it's it's a tricky spot for the Panthers. Unless there's, Bryce Young just has had a terrible first year, which a few quarterbacks have had, and managed to turn it around. It's not going to be a good next few years, I don't think, for the Panthers.
My feelings, I think it needs a steady hand in Carolina, and this is going to have to be, and I don't know if Tepper is capable of being patient, but I think it does need a steady hand. I think we've seen Raheem Morris is in the running for, or is going to be interviewed for the Washington job, which we'll get to, but maybe it's just someone like that, someone who's done it before, someone's been there just to kind of steady things and balance things out, and I think it's a real tough one for a first-time head coach to go into. And I'm not out on Bryce Young yet. I think there's a good starting NFL quarterback in there. He just needs a bit of help to get it out, because he didn't really get a lot aside from Adam Thielen this year.
And the Panthers did just fire Scott Fitterer today as well, so they are looking for a GM and a head coach with Dave Tepper at the head of the search, I guess.
Yeah, it's an important one to get right, I think. Yeah,
massive.
Otherwise, you set this back. Just touch on the Giants. We talked about the Giants and skip past it. Pretty much everybody but Brian Daboll's going by the looks of it. So Wink Martindale, the defensive coordinator, resigned. The offensive line coach was fired. The special teams coach was fired. I think it's the last chance of Brian Daboll. He's got to get that right with the Giants next year. Otherwise, he'll be looking for another job.
So weird, isn't it? He was coach of the year last year, right?
Yeah.
How quick it turns. But that is the point. The coach of the year award always goes to like a huge overachiever, and then it feels like it's just regression back to the mean. It's like, you're in the hot seat. If those seasons were the other way around, last year would have been absolutely fine, and this year would be incredible. And they're not the other way around, they're this way around. So Brian Daboll, very much on the hot seat. I think it's been an encouraging second half of the season for the Giants, though. First half of the year, I think I was certainly wondering out loud, might Daboll get this fired at the end of this year? It seemed crazy, but I think they've done well to turn it around and have a steadier shift the second half of the season, certainly. Nearly done the double over the Eagles.
Yeah, I mean, they need to make a decision on what they do with Daniel Jones, and whether they try and get a quarterback in, whether it's through the draft or I don't know. But that feels again really important for them to get right. They finished 6-11. So the Giants. But Joe, we'll move on to your favourite. So this is a game that would have mattered had the Packers lost, but the Seahawks did win but didn't cover. And can I just have probably my last fuck you of the year with these, because I had a future on Seahawks under 8.5 wins. Matt Prater, one of the most reliable field goal kickers you can have in the NFL. He had 2 shots to win the game for the Cardinals, basically, at the end of that fourth quarter. Missed them both. What?
Yeah, it wasn't a pretty game in terms of the Seahawks side of it. Feels like they should have lost, to be honest. Out the 2 teams, I think it took a good Geno drive at the end, which it feels like he's done quite a bit this year, where he's had an average game, but then suddenly could come back in the fourth quarter. Yeah, I think I've said about the Seahawks all year, they've just not been special anywhere. When you came to into the season, you thought, they drafted well last year, but it feels like a few of them players have taken a step back. That defense has been worse than what was advertised. I think, a few of the cornerbacks who was drafted last year have been benched, and obviously Adams has been benched. It's and that run defense is they traded for Williams, and it's just not been up to snuff. And even like the wide receivers coming into the year, you thought that, if you named the 3 wide receivers, you thought, you could, they'll be near the top compared to the rest of the league. But again, it's just not been. It's just there's been something missing. Just been something special missing. They've just been a team who get a few wins here, but then loses to other teams. And then on the flip side, the Cardinals have won 4 games this year, and it's or is it 5? I can't remember.
No, the Cardinals finished 4-13.
Yeah, so it's a team who have only won 4 teams, but they feel more optimistic than a lot of teams who have won quite a few more than that. I think they've settled on that Kyler Murray is going to be the quarterback. I think we said at the start of the year that this new head coach wants to see what Murray is like in his system, and he looks like he has played well. I don't think he's hit the heights to what it was a few years ago, but he's obviously come back from big injuries. So, and with their draft capital, it's all about building around him now. Harris, could they get Harrison Jr. With have they got a 3rd pick or 4th pick?
Fourth, yeah.
4th picks.
Commanders, Patriots, Cardinals.
But they've either getting their number 1 or tackle, the number 1 wide receiver, or the trading back. Like, it's a beautiful situation to be in if you're happy with Kyler Murray, and I would be.
Yeah, I think he's played really well since he came back, Kyler, and that was look at have had that kind of 5-6 games to be able to take a look at Kyler, and I think he's done really well. Yeah, I'm with you, Joe. I think I'd be really excited from a Cardinals place. They got a foundational piece in Paris Johnson Jr. in the draft, left tackle, who could be a left tackle for 10 years plus in the NFL. They've got McBride, who Murray loves as a weapon. James Conner's done a great job, I think, for them this year. So you might be able to get another year out of him. And then can you have another good can you have a good free agency and drafting? Wouldn't say worst to first because of the division, but could we be sat here in 12 months' time with the Cardinals in the playoffs? I could absolutely see that with Murray and what Gannon's done. So yeah, I think they've done okay, and they've been really competitive all year long. There's not many games. There's maybe a couple of games that were blown out, but they might have been the games against the Niners. But apart from that, look at the teams they've beat: Eagles, Cowboys. Sorry, Bar, I thought you were just talking to me, shouting at Charlie. Eagles,
Very
Cowboys.
so.
I think they beat 4 playoff teams. Is that who they've beaten? Those are the 4 winning games that they've had. So, yeah.
The Seahawks were a playoff team, but yeah.
Did they beat the Seahawks? The other game, yeah.
Oh no, sorry. In my head, they won yesterday. Despite the fact we've just been talking about it.
No, they just covered.
Yeah, they lost out. I'm sorry. I'm blaming the dog. He won't show. But kind of on the same note as what you're talking about there, whose future are you more optimistic for? The Rams in the division, great. 49ers in the division, great. Seahawks in the division, 85-year-old Pete Carroll, Geno Smith at QB, who's not getting any younger, a defense that should be Pete Carroll's baby and isn't stopping anybody, or the Cardinals. I think you'd comfortably want to be the Cardinals of not the top 2.
Yeah.
I find the Seahawks a very I don't know, odd judgment going into 2024. I don't think they will fire Pete Carroll. I don't think that's happening. But
he's confirmed to come back, Pete Carroll, so he's coming
Okay.
back, yeah, for sure. So that means another year of Gino as well, which I think is bad news. I think, yeah. Anyway, we'll
and
get
another
to that.
year of between 6 and 10 wins.
Yeah.
I'm guessing with the Seahawks, it's like where they're actually picking. It's like who can you get? So they might be able to get like a young quarterback in the draft, maybe in the second, third round to sit behind Gino, but it's what you're willing to go. And that's what I was going to say about the Cardinals, that they've only got the 4th pick, so you might be getting, the 4th best quarterback in the draft. And is that good? Is that much of a gamble compared to keeping Murray? So I would definitely keep Murray just because where it is and build around him. But with the Seahawks, the only thing is they have got some it feels like they've got good players who have underperformed this year. Like the 2 tackles who they got last year had a great rookie year, but they've dropped off. Can they rise again and be a good offensive line? Could JSN? He seemed like he came on leaps and bounds at the end of the year. Can he establish himself? And then you've got another big weapon. So
I think we'll see with JSN, like Tyler Lockett, we might start seeing the end of Tyler Lockett, and then that's where JSN can kind of step up. But
yeah, I think Seattle's issues, though, I think are much more on defense.
Yeah,
because again, that should be Pete Carroll's baby. Like, they've spent plenty of resources on there. They just took the cornerback who, going to the Pro Bowl, 5 overall, Devin Witherspoon. But not say he's been a failure or bust. He's been fine or good. But like I said, Jamal Adams, they gave 2 first-round picks for a few years ago, and he's been a huge net negative, especially this year, where he's literally being benched. Tariq Woolen, superstar from last year, has been getting benched for performance. Brought in Leonard Williams, like you say, and the defense is just soft. It's a long way from the Legion of Boom. Gino, I don't think is a long-term solution forever, but I don't think he's the problem. I think he's played largely well this year. Not as well as last year, certainly, but I think probably in the 14 to 16, 18 range of quarterbacks. It's certainly not been a negative compared to a lot of teams. A lot of teams will take that level of performance. But like you say, it's another year of Gino. It's another year of no backup plan. It's another year of Pete Carroll. And is he going to have a magic wand to fix his defense next year? I don't think so. And it's always hard to say, I think Pete Carroll should be fired because he's had such a great career and such a great, spell in Seattle. But looking forward, I don't really think he is the man.
Yeah. Interesting off seasons for both. Let's talk about what was obviously the headline game of the weekend, the 272nd regular season game of the season. The Bills and Dolphins. So Freddie and Adam from the Franchise Tag podcast, who were our guest, took the Buffalo Bills -3. I have no idea how the Buffalo Bills won this game. Both teams were poor, but the Bills were a lot worse, especially in the first half. We saw a lot of bad Josh Allen, a little bit of good Josh Allen, and it turned out that was enough with the help of a huge punt return, special teams play, and a Dolphins team that just seemed to have lost their edge.
I mean, they seem to lose their edge from the first half to the second half as well. I don't know what happened in the second half with Miami. I don't know what happened in the second half of this game, really. Obviously, you had the punt return from Deontay Hardy, which was, great and fun. But it just, I don't know. I think this game would have been so much better if the Bills were playing to be in the playoffs. Because it kind of felt like it got to half time and they were both like, hey, let's just rest up for next week. Is how it felt to me a little bit, especially Miami. Miami in the first half had 17 carries, 53% of the players on offense were rushes. And in the second half, they had 3, 15%. And it's like, are they just resting up because they're happy going to Kansas City? It doesn't quite make sense to me, but what happened in the second half of the game doesn't make much sense to me, so I don't know how to rationalize it, really. The Chase Claypool 2 interception, I think, was poor in a lot of ways. Claypool, I think I would just cut him. I think he's just, again, I feel like I've said this word about 40 times in the show so far, net negative. It seems to be a hindrance just being there. He's not breaking on his route. He doesn't put effort in. You've got practice squad players who will be doing better by doing without the amount of talent he has. He doesn't care. Or he doesn't play like he cares. So I don't think they can afford to carry players like that. I think Miami, they were very They play hard. They play fast. I'm surprised Mike McDaniel still got him in the building because he doesn't seem like the type of coach who would tolerate that kind of slacking off, essentially. I found this just a really weird game, I must say. Like you say, we had the bad and the good of Josh Allen. A lot of bad, I think, in the first half. I don't think I have too many huge takeaways. I kind of think Miami might have more up the sleeve, but with the amount of injuries they've got, I'm not too sure I even believe that. I think I just want to.
But I think the problem with the Dolphins, though, it feels like they do that most big games. Even against the Ravens, they started off hot and then suddenly they go downhill in the second half. It feels like they're that kind of team where, McDaniel scripts, the first few drives and they get the points and they get rolling. And then suddenly when they're in the game, it feels like they just wither and just suddenly just stop. I feel like they've done that in a lot of big games. And, we've said this all year, they've only beat the Cowboys, and it's not like that offense was firing in all cylinders. It was all field goals, wasn't it?
Yeah, they did that against the Cowboys. That same thing that you talked about, Joe. And a lot of Cowboys' ineptitude as to why they didn't win that game. But yeah, they did the same thing as what you just described against the Cowboys on Christmas Eve.
So I just wonder if that's just who they are, and that's an issue. I think a massive issue is not having Waddle. I think, like you mentioned, once he goes, you've got Hill and who else? I think not having that second, the high-end wide receiver, it feels like there's such a big drop-off between when Waddle's out and then you're throwing it to Cedric Wilson and like Claypool, and they haven't really got a high-end tight end just for. It feels like it's if you see the Hill or one of the running backs or nothing. It feels like they haven't got that like safety blanket tight end or certain receiver who they can just get 10 yards with, and then it's just like keep it going. Because I think they'll pump like 4 or 5 times in a row in the second half of this game. So it's just disappointing. And like you said, all the injuries they had a few more injuries during this game, and see who's coming up, who comes back for next week. And again, it's one of them playoff games where it's like a few weeks ago, it'd have been, Dolphins could take the Chiefs out, but it feels like the Chiefs are getting the Dolphins at the right point. But if the Dolphins are not going to beat anyone good all year, can you really trust them with anyone in the playoffs? But again, I wouldn't be surprised if they suddenly just come out balling and we see the Dolphins move to the next round. So disappointing on the Dolphins side. It felt like I said on the preview, that it felt like the Bills were going to win. It was in the script for them to win after everything what's gone on this year, and Josh Allen being Josh Allen, where especially that second interception, it's just like he had a man just there for 10 yards, first down, move on to the next play, but he has to play hero ball most of the time. And I think that's going to cost him in the playoffs, because that defense has stepped up the last 4 or 5 weeks, but are they going to be able to do that against a high-powered team consistently throughout the playoffs? I'm not quite sure. So, I'm not come out of that game thinking, oh, watch out for both of these teams. It's more like wait and see.
I mean, I think, look, if Buffalo, obviously, they're the second seed, so, they might have to face that challenge until the potential AFC Championship trip to Baltimore. So it's interesting. But to your point on the Dolphins, how bad their second half was in this game, they ran 14 offensive plays before that final drive that led to the interception, and that was a 5-play drive. So they ran 19 offensive plays in the second half. I think they had the ball possessed the ball on offense for 1, 2.5, 4.5, 5 minutes. Yeah, Devon A-Chain was gashing the Bills early on.
Yeah.
And they just went away from it completely. Bills did stop it a few times, but yeah, just bizarre game. And I was sort of been crowing about going to Buffalo might be tough. As I was saying just before recording it, if TJ Watt won't be injured, I'd be hammering the Steelers this week. Hammering the Steelers. Because that performance has made me doubt the Bills even more. I was expecting if they went and win this game, I'd be like, right, they're flying, they've got momentum. No, it was horrible. And really, 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 I say that they're probably going to get away with it next week against the Steelers, because TJ Watt's such a big part of that defense. But it was not pretty. The big favourites next week, I think the 10-point favourites against the Steelers, which I'll definitely be taking the Steelers.
Oh, and I feel very silly saying it out loud, especially on something that's recorded. If Mason Rudolph can go in there in his no fucks given attitude that he's playing with right now and slinging it, they can go in and win, with or without TJ Watt. Obviously, you'd much prefer TJ Watt there if you want the Steelers to win the game, but they can be attacked downfield. Pickens is playing real well, especially under Rudolph. Rasul Douglas went out injured yesterday. It sounds like he's going to try and tough through the playoff game, but it's certainly not a good sign. Gabe Davis is injured again. Not sure how his status is, and his stats never quite reflect his importance to the team, I don't think, because you have to account for Gabe Davis. Even if he doesn't get the ball all game, you have to account for him every snap, because if not, he's scoring an 80-yard touchdown. Steph Diggs has been so off it for so long. He had a real good catch this game, but his second half of the season has been not Steph Diggs-esque. I really wouldn't be stunned if Pittsburgh go in there and win, even without TJ Watt. And 10 points, I think, is more than I expected.
Insane.
Yeah.
10 points is insane. And we know the Bills don't cover those big spreads at home as well. Let's move on to the next one. So the Jaguars gifted the AFC South to the Houston Texans by just not really turning up at all in Tennessee. Are we? Yeah, just quick. So Tennessee 28-20, so won the game outright. I was screaming in the preview that I thought the Titans would win the game. Loved the 5.5. Loved the money line. And I took the props on Derrick Henry as well because he due to have a big game. But yeah, the Jacks, the way this game is this season's finished 8-3. Are they in the race for potentially number one seed in the AFC? They've got a pretty good schedule. I think we were saying, they play the Niners. That'll be a tough game, but it's still, apart from that, looks pretty soft. And it's been a mess. Is Doug Peterson lucky that he's going to get another year in Jacksonville after how bad this has finished?
I would say, yeah. I'm guessing the thing is the Jags have fired so many coaches that they probably want some stability. So I think how last year went compared to the year before that, I think it gave him some rope. And I think this year you can say it feels like Trevor Lawrence has been injured most of the year. It feels like he's had a niggly injury. Has that affected him so much? Not quite sure, but I know it's a shoulder injury, so you can't always tell. Herbert had the one the year before and it felt like it affected him. But it was just disappointing. I think Lawrence has had a disappointing year after what happened at the end of last year. It felt like this is his chance to be, superstar quarterback, to be a top 5, top 7 quarterback. And I think he's just not been there. I think, and to, Sunday's game, I think that's one of the worst I've seen him play. Some of the throws, especially the last drive to keep their playoff chances away, were just throwing yards over the wide receivers' heads. I think there was 2 interceptions. The first one obviously wasn't his fault. That was Ingram deflection. But the second one, it was like, who's he throwing to there? And they did have quite a few chances in the red zone. It felt like watching the game, it was like they had chances and they were just throwing them away. There was a few, I think Trevor Lawrence got stopped on the 1 yard line, which was big, and just not that game. And that defense has just not been the same since week 8 and 9. Around that time, it seems like they've just gone a downhill slope, and they just couldn't stop anything this week. And Derrick Henry showing out for his final game.
Yeah, I think Henry sort of confirmed he's going to be leaving in that weird post-game thing where nobody in the stadium stayed around to see him. It was very odd. But yeah, Jacksonville's struggled on offense all year long, and you're right, it felt like this was the Lawrence to take that next step. Within this, kind of, Evan Engram's quietly had one of the best seasons the Titans ever had. He was 2 catches short of equaling, or I guess 3 of breaking Zach Ertz's most receptions by a tight end record. Had 10 grabs in the game. But yeah, with Ridley, and then I think Kirk's been such a big miss. And we thought he was going to be back, so he'd been activated from IR, and then clearly wasn't fit enough to go. And I think that may have made a difference for them if Kirk was fit. But yeah, I think under a lot of pressure next year, because they've got a huge decision to make about, and there's no doubt you keep Trevor Lawrence around, but I think it's what deal does he get? And I think Peterson needs to get a grip of, Peterson needs to get a grip of it and have a good season next year, because I think otherwise they might be moving on from him. It just felt set up for Jacksonville to have a real big year this year, and it's just not gone that way.
And now the Texans have CJ Stroud, the Colts have Anthony Richardson. The Titans are still a work in progress, obviously, but this was a year to dominate that division.
Yeah.
Stroud was learning. Richardson's a project, and he will be next year as well because he didn't get enough football to be anything but going into next year. But, you won't put Doug Peterson as number one coach in that division now. And, I know they made the playoffs last year and they were a trendy pick going into this year. I had full faith in the Jags. So I'm not saying that like snarkily. The Jags have had one double-digit winning season since 2007. They are obviously not a team that's used to success, but this has been some throwaway. They were selling playoff tickets 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, that was a bad lot on it. Yeah, so we've seen the post. Yeah, and you kind of thought that that they'd got that winning mentality going because they finished the last year the playoff win, and then this kind of start. By the time you got to the halfway point, it seems to have got that nailed, and then it's just all falling apart. So yeah. Tough one in Duval, but Titans sign off. Vrabel, let's have a quick chat about Vrabel. Nothing announced yet. I feel he's going to go. Guys, what do you think?
It surprised me last week when you were so confident, and it feels like the vast majority of NFL media agrees with you, so that's me that's out of the loop on that one. I just figured he'd stick around. To me, he seems happy enough, but then, he's talking about how much it fucking sucks to lose. Does he not think Will Levis is the future? Does he not want to rebuild, maybe? Because, again, where the Titans picking 7, you're probably not getting one of your favourite quarterbacks there if you want to go quarterback. I don't know. Like I said, I thought he would just stay. I didn't think there'd be any talk of the New England thing, but it seems to be more likely than not right now.
I think it's such a good fit, yeah.
I'm just curious because it feels like it's Mayo's job for the last year or two. It's been that it feels like that's been the internal plan with what the decision makers at New England. So I think unless it feels like it's Patriots or nowhere else. I can't see him anywhere else. And I know you mentioned about the losing and the rebuilding, but if he goes to the Patriots, is that big a rebuild? I think they're probably on par. But,
I think it probably is a bigger rebuild, but I think there's just more. He's kind of done it in the Titans. Because the Titans had a number one seed in the AFC under Vrabel. Kind of he's taken that team through that cycle. I don't know if he just want to go through the cycle again in Tennessee. You're going to be losing Derrick Henry, which I think was a huge part of their success in the past few years. So. Yeah, I don't know. I think maybe just a new challenge for Vrabel, and New England makes sense with his history there. And I don't know if because it's gone so bad in New England that actually we get someone. So it's kind of the best of both worlds, I think, with Vrabel. Somebody who knows the organization, someone who's been out of it for long enough to be able to put his own stamp on it, as opposed to kind of Mayo who's been sat under the tree, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. I'll be curious what Kraft is, because it feels like there's always the Patriots way, and I feel like he's built into that as well. So, yeah.
And there was,
I think they should just like blow it up and go for someone brand new and a whole new, who's not the pay. Yeah, but I can't imagine them doing that. So,
well, we'll get to Bill, and we'll talk about Bill a little bit more later on. The Packers had a win and you're in situation, and they won. This was a little bit of a struggle because the Bears hung around in this one. You had the Bears +3, Byron, as your underdog. But the Packers won 17-9. The Packers are in. The Packers are the 7th seed, and they go on the road to play the Cowboys in weeks in a wild card round. I was like, week 19? That's not a thing. Super wild card weekend against Dallas. Cowboys Packers matchup, good one. History wise, plenty of playoff battles. Is this as far as this young team can go this season, or do they have a chance next week in Dallas? And maybe Joe, you're best off answering that one without any bias.
Yeah, I think they could cause the Cowboys some issues, because when you look at the game and you look at the stats, the Packers outperformed the Bears by a long way. I think the score was actually looks better for the Bears than it does for the Packers. I think you just look at the quarterback. Fields threw for 148, while John Love was 316, and they even rushed 124 versus 75. So I think the Bears are fairly lucky to actually stay in this game. I think the Packers made mistakes at crucial moments where they missed field goals or Love fumbling the ball where they could have scored more. I think they had a touchdown which was reversed as well, which it looked like a touchdown, but then I think he kind of like fumbled it a little bit in the after completing the catch. So I think the Packers look really good, and I think Jordan Love's. He had I think we've talked about this. He had up and down start of the season, but it looks like the Packers are just going to keep rolling with a quarterback for the 20, 30 years, which is ridiculous because he's looked really good, and I think. The Cowboys are certainly favourites, and I think most people are going to pick the Cowboys, but I think the Packers are going to keep it close. I think, especially that offense, I think they can cause the Cowboys some problems, and the defense has actually showed up the last 2 weeks, which has been the biggest surprise. Are they going to be able to carry that on? Who knows? I'm a bit susceptible for that, but I think I saw the spread was 7 points. And I think I'll probably lean to the Packers. I think it's going to be a close game. And I think like I said, they outperformed the Bears. And the Bears had the resurgence in the last few weeks and were looking better. And I think, the Packers showed who was boss in that game. So I'm curious how you feel Fields did. I don't know if he, one way or the other, if he's saved his job or do you think they're going to go with pick a quarterback with that first pick?
I think probably what Fields has done is actually they might be able to get a first out of somebody for him. Is kind of where it's at. Somebody's desperate. I don't know, but I think he's up to his value, trade value. I think he's the best, and it's probably kind of been the best case scenario for the Bears in terms of he's looked pretty good the past month or so. So they hold all the cards, but it feels like I know they took this. They went with him last year. He didn't play very well early on. But also, this team as a whole was pretty poor. But I don't think you can do that again when you've got it. I also don't know if he's going to go number one overall. But I'm not massively convinced of Caleb Williams either. I think he's a bit of a project. He's the hype around him versus what he's put out on the field for USC. Especially in big games and against tough defenses. And it's irrelevant, put to one side, USC haven't had a defense and they're in a ridiculous high scoring game. But when he's had to play a defense that's been good, he's been found wanting in college. So, I think it's a tough one because I think you're going to have problems if you take Williams as well. So, I don't know. Just quick one of Jordan Love. He's been incredible the second half of the season. I think he's 18 touchdowns to 1 interception in his last 8 games. They really have looked after the football and the whole that fumble that was a bit daft. He was holding the ball a bit loose, wasn't he? But on the whole, they've really looked after the football, and a huge, I think, reason for them settling down, especially the last 3-4 games, is the return of Jones, running back. Aaron Jones has been huge. He's been a Cowboys killer before. In games where he's run for 4 touchdowns in a game against Dallas. And Dallas aren't particularly doing a great job of stopping the run at the minute. And that worries me. I think the secondary can hold up. For the Cowboys, the pass rush has become a worry, and the D-line as a whole has become a bit of a worry for me because they can't stop the run and they've stopped getting to the quarterback. They got to howl a bit in the second half because of the way the game went on Sunday. But those two, that's a bad combination heading into the playoffs. So, I think it's going to be a tough one. I think the Packers probably cover, Joe. I'm with you. And those young receivers as well. Dontavian Wicks. We've seen Bo Melton the last few weeks. Jaden Reed when he's been back. I think in terms of an upset, Cowboys could be the team on the biggest upset watch, I think, because I just think the Packers are playing really, really well at the minute. And Cowboys not so much, especially defensively.
Yeah, I think that's kind of. I don't think I'm as nervous as you are, Paul, but I think if the Packers defense turns up, it's going to be a real tough game. I think that's kind of where my mindset is, and there is a little bit of me is like, this is a really young Green Bay team. This is Jordan Love's first ever playoff game. Obviously, it's his first season as a starter. Dallas is not an easy place to go. The lights will never be brighter than, well, there will be next week if he makes it through, but they'll have never been brighter for him. Is there any sense of nerves? Dallas have an opportunistic secondary who will pounce and they will take those opportunities if they come. That's not really much over the narrative stuff, but that stuff can play out. I'd be stunned if Dallas and Dak and the offense do the same kind of mistakes because, at this stage, CD Lamb's playing as good as any wide receiver in football. Dak's had his best season of his career. These aren't guarantees to win you anything, but I just think they can handle the moment at home, certainly, more than Green Bay's very young, incredible season they've had going on the road to Cowboy Stadium. I think it might just be a bit too big of an experience for them.
But you say that Love played well Thanksgiving against the Lions and also against the Chiefs on Sunday Night Football. But there we go. Let's move on. We'll skip these next two games. But Joe, you had the Chiefs as 3.5-point underdogs against the Chargers. Nothing too much to talk about there. Blaine Gabbert played for the Chiefs. Chiefs rested pretty much everybody. Oh, Chris Jones got his million. 1.25 million. He was hunting Eastern Stick. It was hilarious to watch. He came so close so many times.
His second fastest play of the game was his celebration. That's literal. Yeah. Next gen stats. He was 14.5 miles an hour on his celebration sprint to the sideline.
Good on him.
Play of the game.
1.25, and it was so annoying that we shouted that out in our preview, but Bet365 never got the bloody market up, or far too late by the time. Yeah, I was checking it all the time, and that was one of the ones we shouted out. Also, the Browns, Bengals. Browns rested everybody. Bengals won, what was it, 31-14? Is that right? Yeah, 31-14. A couple of kind of garbage time touchdowns for the Browns to get on the board, but Freddie and Adam had them +7, and obviously the Bengals won by 14. But it did mean every single team in the AFC North finished with a winning record, which I think is the first time since the 1930s that's happened, which was the NFC. I can't remember what it was, but anyway, but yes. Bit of history for you. We've talked Seahawks Cardinals. I had the over. Byron, you had the over in Chiefs Chargers, which was nowhere near. Bad week for the overs. Joe, you had Bears Packers over, and then Adam and Freddie had Titans Texans over. No, Colts Texans over. Get there. But the key takeaway from that is that the Houston Texans have won the AFC South. They will have a home playoff game, and again, real tight back and forth game. This one on Saturday night, but CJ Stroud came through again in a tight spot.
Yeah, between CJ Stroud and Nico Collins is a dog. Like, he is a superstar waiting to be pronounced as such. I don't know quite who he reminds me of, but he reminds me a lot of good receivers over the years who just a little bit TOE in that sense of like, I'm the number one here. I'm taking that ball. And I don't think he showed it much in his first 2 years, I must say. I have him on a couple of dynasty teams that were just kind of like, yeah, he's still here on my team, I guess. Okay. And he's had such a great first year with CJ Stroud. It's like, man, what a good quarterback can do for a player, because he looks completely reborn, and he's a potential game wrecker in the playoffs. And I think that's going to be a fascinating matchup next week.
Great season. He's, so you mentioned Nicholas, he's 12th, just short 1,300 yards, and he's missed 2 games as well.
Yeah.
Great narrative matchup, Browns, Texans, with the Deshaun Watson trade. So many of those little stories in the playoffs, but we won't talk about them too much. But on the flip side for the Colts, great, again, great year as well. Finished with a winning record. Even without Andy Richardson, we talked about obviously how he was injured so early. He's not played a lot of football. Gardner Minshew is doing a great job in relief. Jonathan Taylor had a huge game in this one as well. What do you go for, 188?
Yeah,
188 on the ground and touchdown. Bright future Indianapolis if they can get Richardson back and he can play to the level consistently that he looked like he was going to from his fleeting appearances.
Yeah, I think it's massive next year. I think, I was just trying to think on the fly then, but they're probably the biggest pressure is probably on Richardson next year in terms of, the make or break kind of franchise in terms, because he's, he looked well the first few weeks, but can he stay on the field? I think that's his biggest issue. And, we've seen plenty of quarterbacks look good for 3 or 4 weeks and then suddenly going downhill. So I think they've certainly got the right head coach. They've got a good team around him. I think they probably need a few more. They could do with 1 or 2 maybe better weapons for him in terms of the wide receivers, because it feels like they can't stand the field. And I don't know if Pittman's a true number one, so I think they'll probably look for one there. But yeah, happy for Texans. Team who had only they won 3 games last year to make the playoffs. And I think, fact for you here, Paul, they're only the 5th team to get to the playoffs with a rookie quarterback and head coach.
Is it a pop quiz question? Do we need to get the other 4?
You can go for it. I was going to ask who was the last one, but you can. They're all in the last 10 since 2008. They've all been there.
Whilst we think of that, because I don't know the answer off the top of my head, I was going to comment on whatever the Colts do in the offseason. Can I please stop seeing Mo Alley-Cox running down the field looking like fucking me and being about 8 yards shy of the pissing ball? I don't care who the quarterback is. I used to love Mo Alley-Cox. He's 40 feet tall and he looks funny. But he's been in the league about 10 years at this point and he can't move. Like, if end zone, fine. Have him in the red zone only and don't let him. And he must stand in the end zone and just chuck it up and hope he can reach it. He should not be on fucking downfield wheel routes. He looks, again, I'll say he looks like me, and that's not a compliment. I shouldn't be on an NFL field.
Fair. And also, like, we haven't talked about the biggest play as well, which is the 4th down, which I think
Jonathan Taylor.
Jonathan Taylor on the field.
But I think the thing is, the scheme did perfectly.
Yep.
Like, if the throw was a little bit better, if he like,
it was terrible.
If he brings that in, you would have been like, Shane Steichen, what a head coach. He took that time out to see what the Texans, what they're lining up, and he got the perfect call. Really, I understand if Taylor was there, could he have caught it? But Taylor had a few chances before that to get a touchdown. So it was huge. But that's why Minshew is probably a backup, because he's making the big throws and the big moments where he's wide open to get that first down easily, and you drain the clock and you win that game and move on. And we talk about how the Texans kickers cost them a playoff spot because, missing that extra point was huge. And I think it doesn't really get talked about, but that could have been massive. So,
absolutely, yeah.
So was the rookie head coach Cliff and Kyler?
No.
I'm not sure if they made it
first. Guess. Yeah.
It just came to mind. I was like,
so the last one was for the Colts.
What, Luck and right?
Chuck Pagano.
Pagano was a rookie head coach that year.
Luck and Chuck, yeah.
Fair enough. I thought Pagano was there the year before, but obviously not.
So that was the last one.
I think he might be the interim coach.
He was the interim coach, you're right, yeah. But he was a rookie first-time head coach. That's right, yeah.
And then the other 3, Rex Ryan and Mark Sanchez. John Harbaugh, Joe Flacco, and Mike Smith and Matt Ryan.
Matt Ryan, yeah, I was going to get that last one.
Nice. Cool.
It's a long decade.
Well, I changed it because I looked again. I was like, because 2008 feels like a decade ago. And then when I saw it, I was like, oh, yeah, it wasn't a decade ago. 16 years ago.
We'll move on. We've talked about Bucks Panthers already. Byron, you hit the under. I hit the under with that. You hit the under with Steelers Ravens. Steelers got the big win to give themselves a chance. They needed a favor, which was either Buffalo or Jacksonville losing. They got that favor from the Titans beating the Jags, and the Steelers are in the playoffs. Not too much to talk about in this game apart from TJ. I suppose TJ Watt going down.
Yeah,
it's absolutely massive for the Steelers.
Yeah. Not much to say about it other than, is there a chance he's back for the end of the playoffs? I didn't see how bad his actual injury was. I know it's
a MCL sprain. And they said to do like 2 weeks and then stick a brace on it. He is a superhuman, TJ Watt. So you know what? Maybe he does just kind of tough through it on Sunday, but I can't see it.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to. Yeah, certainly I wouldn't want to rule him out if there's a chance he can go. But it doesn't sound like it's sensible for his long-term health.
Yeah, horrible game this one. Just that driving rain and just a bit of feedback for ESPN. Wipe the goddamn fucking camera lens, please.
They seemed to get started in the second half a bit more.
It was so bad. You couldn't see, you literally couldn't see. It was crazy. But that rain was bad in Baltimore. Shout out to everybody who went to that game and subbed out a lot of Steelers fans, but that was horrible. I certainly wouldn't have been standing out there in that fucking rain.
No. Just on because I can't think where else to squeeze this in. Just on a Lamar Jackson note, obviously there was a big thing of all the teams that came out and said they didn't want Lamar Jackson. They were happy with what they have. As of today, 4 of those 5 teams have fired their head coach since, which I just find
Nice.
absolutely hilarious. The Falcons, Panthers, Commanders, and Raiders. The other team who publicly came out and said they weren't interested was the Dolphins, who I think they probably would rather have Lamar Jackson in that building than Tua Tagovailoa.
Yeah, rough enough. Great year from the Ravens. Scored number 1 seed. Lamar's going to be MVP. Going to be so tough to out in the playoffs. I think maybe this might come back to haunt the Ravens a little bit. You've already got your 1 week of rest. I understand that.
You said 2019 repeat.
No, just leaving the Steelers hanging around.
Okay. Because I know,
I know, that again, and then they got beat by the Titans, didn't they? But leaving the Steelers hanging around when those games are always so close, no matter how good the Ravens are, and that's the Steelers have won. I know again against the backups and they dropped, the rested everyone, and that's 4 in a row that the Steelers have won in Baltimore. If the Steelers get through, find a way to beat the Bills and go to Baltimore again, that is going to be a horrible game for the Ravens. I know they're great, and they are, and they've got me. I'm a believer, but just those AFC North games are horrible, and that's one you can easily lose. So yeah,
and it's one of them games as well where I think I talked about in the preview where it's not always going to be, it's never going to be pretty, or very rarely, but it's like Mike Tomlin just wants to jump in the mud, and so does Harbaugh, and they just want to roll around and play ugly football and get muddy, and someone's going to come out with a 4-point win. And that isn't really what you want in a playoff game when you're the best team in football. You want to play higher standards, not get dragged down to theirs.
Yeah, and absolutely, if it does happen, it will be that sort of game. There's no way the Ravens will blow out the Steelers and put 50 on them like they did to the Dolphins or do what they did to the Niners. Not a chance. So I just think you've got a chance to just kind of bury Pittsburgh and just get them out of the way. And I know you're thinking bigger things, but it just feels that might have been a mistake when you've already got your rest. You've already got your 1 week rest.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I do think there is a little bit though of because if they played the starters and one got injured and was going to miss, people would slam them so much.
Yeah, and we might talk about that with the Lions when we get to them as well. But let's move on. Just Falcons Saints beat them. Joe, you had the under on this one. I backed the under as well. The under was 42.5. The Saints scored 48. So where was this a few weeks ago? The Saints won 4 of 5 to finish the season. But where was this kind of middle of the season? Because if the Saints play like this, they piss the NFC South, wouldn't they? Just too little, too late from New Orleans.
Yeah, well, I think in the first quarter, both quarterbacks were just perfect. Just couldn't miss a throw, and I think it was 40, within the blink of an eye. And I was like, well, that's the undergoing, and the Saints just didn't stop. And I think it feels like that's the difference between the teams. Ridder was perfect for the first quarter and a half, and then he just throws that interception where it's to nobody, and then it just goes downhill from there. It's just that kind of player where he'll have I would say a good stretch. I wouldn't even call it a stretch, to be honest. And then suddenly just tanks, and you're just like, this is why everyone thought coming into this year he wasn't the quarterback, and it's got Arthur Smith fired because, he put his trust in him, and they've just, with that schedule, they shouldn't be going 7-10. The running game's never there, and I think the biggest reason, I think there was first and goal from close, and it didn't even look like they were going to score a touchdown, and then Ridder throws one to Bijan, and it should have been intercepted, to be honest. It was a terrible throw, and you just saw Arthur Smith's face like, what have I done? I'm getting fired. Why did I choose this quarterback? From a guy, and he only played because Heineke was injured. So you've gone from flip-flopping constantly saying he's our guy, we're going to stick with him, to then saying, oh, we're only playing it because the other guy isn't fit enough. So he deserves to get fired. It's just been such a disappointing year. I think last year, at least, it was you could see some reminiscence of what his offense was going to be, and with the picks they made, you thought, wow, this is going to be a dynamic offense. And they just not look good all year. Even in the wins, that it's not like they've blown a team out. That running game with all the firepower, it's just not been there. And I think he deserved to go. I was hoping that they didn't win and they would keep him and have another dud year next year. So good riddance.
Yeah, I mean, the debacle at the end. Like, I know, we can, the Saints went against Dennis Allen's instructions just to kneel it out. Jameis fronted up, which was brilliant afterwards. Yeah, it was kind of on us, we decided. And that spells its own problems in New Orleans. But what was Smith thinking going off at Dennis Allen afterwards?
No,
like,
I'm actually on Smith's side there because they were in victory formation. If they just did a formation like a running formation and scored, I'll say, okay, the Saints have got the right to do. It's the fact that they're going to victory formation, which tells the defense, okay, they're not going to win anything, so we're not going to try anything, and then they just steamroll up. That's where injuries happen, and I've seen a few things on X, a few X players saying next year when the Saints are going into victory formation, the other defensive linemen are going to take it out on them and just because no one forgets that kind of play because that's how you get players injured because all the Falcons defense were on the back foot thinking, it's going to be a game over. Yeah. So I'm on Smith's side, that side. And like you said, the Saints have won 4-5. Might be looking hard for next year. And then this happens just to undermine it all, to basically say your team just went against the head coach. And it wasn't just Jameis. Apparently it was
the whole team.
And that just doesn't look good whatsoever for a head coach that they're going against. You can't imagine that with any other team, really. That the team just says, we're not going to do what you're going to do. You can do something completely different. When it's that kind of play. We've
talked, and we'll get into the Saints' problems in the off season about what they've got heading into next year. I think that Atlanta job is a very, very I think it's a very, very attractive position. I really like Ben Johnson for the Lions for this one. Just think with the weapons you've got there, get you a quarterback. I love the fit of Michael Penix is going to play in the national championship in a few hours' time for Washington against Michigan, potentially win it. Michael Penix in that offense with that running game, with Drake London, with Kyle Pitts, I just think that could be a very, very good team. And the defense has got a bit better as well. So you carry on improving the defense as well.
And having the 8th pick as well gives you the opportunity to move up to get him. So you've got that room. So
I think you could be at 8 and get Penix. I don't think you're going to need to move up to I don't think you need to move up to get the 3rd quarterback. I don't think, because I think the other teams with what's there would, you've got. We'll talk about the draft, but I think 8 might be the spot for Penix, but we'll see.
I could also see them getting Fields as well.
Fields would be great,
yeah, a kind of team. But there's apparently some rumors where they're interested in Belichick. I don't know if you've heard that, which I think would be absolute. Yeah, I would say disaster. Like that team needs, like you said, a fun offensive coordinator who's going to use them players and get the most out of it, and hopefully get a young quarterback. You don't want Belichick there, especially
Rings Bailey's happy with him.
Well, exactly. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about that and let's move on because Adam and Freddie had the under and Adam had the inside line on the snowstorm that was coming into Foxborough. A great visual, but just so sad. And luckily he went in at half time and kind of cleared all the snow off it. But Belichick was just getting buried in the snow. He was just stood in the same spot and just gradually, as that first half was going, I was like, is this how it's going to end? The streak against the Jets going and then just Belichick frozen in time on the sideline like Han Solo in Star Wars.
No need to build a statue. Just have
he's just there. Well,
I haven't seen anyone that covered in white stuff at Gillette since Robert Kraft was bringing the masseuses in.
Look, so it's not done yet, but I think everything says that it's going to be the end of Belichick and the Patriots. He looked, he's never particularly engaging or enthusiastic in those press conferences, but he was the saddest I've ever seen him look in that post-game press conference.
I think he even sounded a little emotional. His voice seemed to break a couple of times. I'm like, oh my God, the robot has a heart. What the hell?
Is he ill from just standing in the snow for that long?
Could well be. He is 85 years old and he's just been stood in whatever degree weather in a snowstorm. Possibly, yeah, you might be right. But he was ill, apparently. Yeah, so apparently, Joe. I'm sure Joe's got it from somewhere. Yeah, I think he was just emotional and throwing out that illness thing to try and keep his reputation up.
Yeah, just a turgid game, but yeah, and again we've talked about maybe Vrabel's a fit if if Belichick does go, Jared Mayo, and then does Bill continue? Yeah, do we think he
I
continues?
think
Got the
he
appetite
would.
for it?
That record's there to
The
entice
Shula
him.
record, yeah. But he
Yeah,
needs to win like another. What is it? 28 games.
Yeah,
Is
it
it
was
that
around
many?
30 going into the season because I think he needed two
Yeah.
goodish seasons. So, like, about 4 realistic seasons. And he's only ticked
10
off
of
4
these.
this year. Yeah.
I think a team's going to go for him. I think
so too.
I see the Command. I think I said Commanders a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
It's that kind of franchise and new ownership. So let's get someone.
They're moving quickly though, so the Commanders are doing interviews today. They've sacked Ron Rivera
ticking off
this
the
morning.
Rooney. They're ticking off the Rooney musts, and then they can get down to the actual search. I know how these NFL teams do it.
Yeah,
get your diversity interviews in early so you can say they're done.
Yeah,
and then you wait to see if Bill Belichick gets fired. I don't even know who's in for an interview, but I figured there would be.
Well,
it's Ben Johnson, Raheem Morris, and I want to say Steve Wilkes, but I might be wrong on that.
I feel for Steve Wilkes. He probably was due a job after last year with the Panthers.
Yeah. I'll be curious if they actually sack him. I think they still think they could trade him, because if like Jared Mayo or Vrabel, they're not really going to go anywhere. So like they've got time to like ship him around to see if they can get a draft pick, maybe a second rounder from a team desperate. Sean Payton was it just one first round, or was it
one
first
of the two,
and a second? Yeah.
So Belichick should be able to get at least a second. I think some team will be like willing to do that.
Something tells me, I don't know if Kraft and the Patriots are going to be willing to, because then you do that. You wait until after the Super Bowl to do that, I think.
Yeah.
And I think it just gets messy, that and drawn out, and then you've also got to trade to a team that Belichick's willing to go to as well. So I don't know where I think maybe this week we might see mutual parting of ways.
Me too. But if they've already decided who they're going to choose, so if it is Mayo or Vrabel, then they don't have to.
The problem is, if it's Vrabel, the Titans aren't firing Mike Vrabel.
Well,
they need to trade for something for Mike Vrabel.
We need to just move the picks around.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're just all going to bang Washington for the picks and just move them around the NFL.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah. But yeah, the end of an era, I think, for sure, and I'm sure we'll comment on it when I believe the inevitable does happen.
Twitter, we don't have anything official yet.
No other breaking news.
I'd also congrats Jets for breaking the.
Breaking the streak.
Yeah, the streak, which I think was 15 games. That's fucking impressive.
Can we say the Jets, or can we just say congrats Breece Hall for breaking the streak?
Well, I was just going to get to that. Breece Hall is like on his returning from an ACL last year. It's the end of the season. It's a meaningless snow game, and he's carrying the ball 37 times. Rest him is the best fucking offense. Well, Garrett Wilson's a great offensive player too. Yeah. Give him a fucking rest.
Wasn't it to get like his 1,000 yards or something like
that?
And
they didn't get him in.
Yeah.
Robert Sala's blaming the mathematician on the sidelines.
Well, that's why they kept giving him the ball.
If you're not even going to give him the 1,000 yards because you can't fucking count, rest the fucker.
Yeah. We know Salah's going to be back next year, but I think he's potentially another one we're going to talk in 12 months' time that's going to be in trouble. But just a ranted snow game to finish off the season for those teams.
Did you see Zeke's statement?
No.
And to be fair, credit to Sam Sherman, one of my favorite fantasy football follows on Twitter. He amended it, which I'll tell you the amendment in a moment. But he said, "I always wanted to play in a snow game. They suck." Or it sucks. Or it turns out it sucks. But Sam Sherman done a Photoshop which said, "I always wanted to play for Bill Belichick. Turns out it sucks." Which I thought was absolute fucking gold.
Oh dear. Rough one for the Patriots, and it feels like they're starting again. Our FourFold challenge is complete. I didn't make it, guys. It was looking good. I got the 2 up early, and then the Eagles and Cavs. I wasn't too fussed actually picking the Eagles because it was quite funny watching the Giants batter them. So it'll have to be next year for me. But we hit 9 in the end. Profitable, I think it was, because we've gone a few weeks without hitting once. I think it was 180 quid profit. If you've been following us, if you back to fiver on every single one of us. None of us, me, Byron, and the guests finished 2-2 this week. Joe 1-3. Byron won by 7. We'll have a donation to a charity that I will make. So it's 14 games, fiver a game. Is that all right? 70 quid.
Absolutely, yeah.
That seem right? Yeah, it seems fair. So yes, we'll get that donation made.
Imagine if it was like, no, that's not enough.
Yeah.
Just about
No, it's
very generous, Paul. Much appreciated.
Yeah. So we will get that organised and done. So yeah, it was nice, and we'll see if we can come back next year with a much better performance. Vishen's had a great betting week this week as well. Just FourFold's been terrible. Moving on, we'll go just cover off the last bits of news, I guess. 50p. I should have said that, shouldn't I? Cover off our ATS pick. So yeah, Joe won this, held on. Byron only caught one game of him. I had a stormer of a week when there was no chance of me winning. 12-4 against the spread. I don't know. Just can't get
like
this right.
Tomlin as an underdog when the pressure's off.
Yeah,
he shines.
Exactly. Well, Mike Tomlin won as favourite this week. That was one of our wins. We've talked about that one. Me and Byron on the Steelers, all on the Texans who won, all on the Bucs who covered. Byron, you covered with the Bengals. Lions, let's just touch in on the Lions. So the Lions have played in the early slate, so did keep in all their starters against the Minnesota Vikings. And Sam Laporta took a bad injury, who has had a hell of a year.
Yeah.
I don't think, I'm sure we'll hear more of it as the week goes on, but it was hyperextension in the knee and a bone bruise. I'm not sure he makes it
couple of weeks, I think,
on Sunday, yeah. And yeah, I mean, is it, there's the rest versus rust argument, but easy acceptance. But do you think it was the right call? The Lions did have a chance, had the Eagles and Cowboys lost to move up to the 2 seed, or do we think that the Lions should have sat?
I don't judge it too harshly. I must say that you play to win games, and it's kind of just a risky take, I think. I'm not going to judge them too harshly for it, though, because, ultimately you have to play someone. Brock Wright was already missing at tight end for the Lions as well. So, you do have to kind of put, unless you're just going to tank the entire game, you do have to put something competent out. AJ Brown went down for the Eagles. They lost their safety, ACL. So, football's a violent game and you're going to get injuries. I don't knock them for it. I just think it's one of the things, it can happen. And I'm not going to beat him up for it.
Yeah, I think, the Lions play the Rams. We've got that Stafford Goff. What a matchup. Aiden Hutchinson, last 2 weeks, got 5 sacks in the last 2 games. He's finished with 11.5 on the season. Got 5 in his last 2 games. He's been a huge force the last few weeks in that game against the Cowboys and then against the Vikings. Should be a good one. First home playoff game the Lions are going to have had for 30 years. So Ford Field on Sunday Night Football as well. It's just a great matchup, and should be a fun one. Rams, Lions, Patriots. We've just talked about. We've talked about the Saints. Talked about we're all on the Patriots, all on the Saints. I was on the Titans. You two believing in the Jags. Cardinals, Seahawks. We've talked about. Me and Byron were on the Cards who covered. That's a tough one for you, Joe. On the Packers and Bears, me and Joe on the Packers. Joe, Byron, you're on the Bears. All on the Chiefs. All on the Raiders. The only one touching on this one. And Antonio Smith surely gets this job now. I mean, if there was any doubt, surely it's gone.
I think they might give it to Antonio Pierce instead, but yeah.
Did I say Antonio Brown?
You said Antonio Smith. I'd love him to give it to Antonio Brown. Get them on Hard Knocks.
Who's Antonio Smith?
No idea.
Antonio Pierce, yes.
But yeah, I mean, obviously there's no guarantee, because I kind of hate when people say, the interim doesn't always work out. Spoiler it. Not all coaching hires ever work out.
Yeah.
But the locker room obviously loves him. The fans love him. I'm not sure what more he could have done to get the job on merit this season. Obviously, to go through the process, yada, yada, yada. But I'd much rather see him get the job than, go with a Harbaugh or something, just a big name out of college. Yeah. Let him go somewhere else. But I think he deserves his shot, and I think he seems to kind of embody what the Raiders should be,
Yeah.
That give no shit and fire your players up and, smoking cigars in the locker room. I think, he's a great fit. And, Joe's just mentioned it there. But I think they should very much be in the market for an early QB. I mean, what are they picking? 7, I believe.
13, I think.
13 now. The
Oh,
run
yeah.
is taking them back. So they finished it. It was 8 and 9 in the
8
end.
and 9.
Yeah.
So yeah, they might be out of thing, but you can always move up to that 6-ish spot without paying a huge capital, especially if like the Giants don't want to pay the QB.
And also, how many years as a quarterback just like drops? You think of like Justin Fields, Matt Jones, that
Will
kind
Levis.
of can drop. So they could, it might not work out. All the players have just said not really worked out as a franchise quarterback, but they could at least give it a go and see where they get there.
Also, I don't think Aiden O'Connell's been that bad.
They might ride
with Aiden O'Connell next year, and that defense has been so good since Pierce took it over. I don't know. Maybe they do stick with Aiden O'Connell. They've found something in Zamir White as well. Obviously, they've got I think Jacobs. He played on the tag right. Jacobs is done. In Zamir White, he's had an incredible month since he's been playing.
Yep.
They might have found something there. Running game, defense, quarterback who doesn't make that many mistakes. Maybe, I don't know. Could work.
I would only say with like defense, it's so up and down year on year, and through the season as well. So to like fully use as a guarantee next year they're going to have a great defense. I think quarterback and offensive play is more consistent of year to year. So I still think, I think if he's like a bridge quarterback though, I don't see him as like the future down the line. So I think if someone falls to him, or you never know who's going to be in free agency, I think they should, go for it. But
I think they are I think they're on the bag for another year of Jimmy G. Regardless, I don't think he's cut.
Okay.
Yeah. So, because I was kind of surprised to see him come in the game, because I thought maybe they're doing the Russell Wilson thing where they don't want to get him injured. Yeah. But I'm pretty sure they don't really have an out in his contract.
They do want to get him injured for next year.
And I think also the Raiders need to hit on a first-round pick as well. Tyrese Wilson again this year. He's been awful. And I was big on him out of Texas. I thought he was going to be good. And he's been awful. He's going to be another dud.
Yep.
They need to hit on a first-round pick. And I'm not sure mortgaging the future, if trying to move up for a quarterback, would be the way to go about it. I say if one falls, and then you're talking maybe Bo Nix, JJ McCarthy, but then you're talking fourth off. You're looking at, I don't know, you might get the fourth quarterback then. I don't know.
It's interesting because Denver pick one ahead of them, who also need a long-term quarterback. I've similar needs across the board, I think. But neither of them, I think, would mind a franchise quarterback fall into them. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see, Jets at 10, Minnesota at 11. Do Vegas is trying even? We're way too early.
Get Cousins back. Let's be we were all on the Eagles -5, and they got beat by the Giants. Love that. Joe, let's just touch on San Francisco. Obviously, we saw Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz winning a game. With the reckless abandon that we get from Carson Wentz. He was great. He was just flying about everywhere. Very entertaining.
Yeah. I think he was like their leading rusher. I think he was leading rusher in the game, actually. So
it was mad.
It's one of these games I didn't keep a big eye on just because, all backups were in. I think 49ers started quite a few the first few drives, and I think they scored on most of them. So I don't think it was a terrible performance by Sam Darnold. He just didn't look good when the backups were in. So nothing much to take out of this game, really, from either team because, the rest are probably star players. And, Wentz was just slightly better than Darnold with the backups. So.
Not only did Wentz have the most rushing yards, he had the most rush attempts in the game.
He ran the ball 17 times. That must be, without doubt, the most times he ran the ball in a game.
The Rams only ran for 36 times in the game. He ran for 50% of their rush attempts.
Yeah. One thing to shout out in the game, certainly, was Puka Nacua breaking 2 of the rookie wide receiving records for number of receptions, number of yards. It was 106 receptions he's finished on, and over 1,500 yards, was it? Just over, Yep. So, shout out Puka Nacua. Great season. And again, in any other year, he's Offensive Rookie of the Year by a mile, isn't it?
1486 he ended on.
1486, just short of 1,500. Yeah, any other year, he's Offensive Rookie of the Year by a mile. Sadly, CJ Stroud's probably going to win that. Rams going to be a tough out in the playoffs. I say they've got that. It's just such a great story with Stafford going back to the Lions. It's going to be such a good game.
Yeah, and the real revenge part of it, I think, is Goff versus
Jared Goff. Yeah.
Stafford wanted to leave and wanted to win a Super Bowl, and he got it. There's not really a revenge angle there. I'm sure he loves Detroit, and I'm pretty sure Detroit loves Matthew Stafford. I'm not sure he'll get a warm welcome because it's a playoff game, and I don't think he should because it's a playoff game. But Jared Goff got fucked by Sean McVay, and it was a salary dump in that trade. Yeah. He's been reborn in Detroit, so there's your real revenge angle, and it sucks because I think the Rams are going to win, and I think they're probably a slightly better, more well-rounded team. Matthew Stafford's had a really good season, but a really good second half of the season. He's making some. It sounds funny to say it because Matthew Stafford's been a great quarterback for a long time, but it's kind of throws where Patrick Mahomes throws it. It's it's a main lead on SportsCenter and goes viral. Where Stafford throws it, and it's like, oh, what a throw by Matthew Stafford, and he gets highlighted, but not to the same level. And it feels like he's had a few of them this season where it's just like he's playing really, really high level quarterback play.
I'm real glad they won this game as well because I much prefer. I think they're both very tough games. I much prefer to play the Packers than the Rams.
Me too.
Yeah.
The Rams defense is so much better than I anticipated going into the season. McVay's, and again, these aren't to say the Packers are a soft touch right in any way like that, but they have the. I think if you told me the Rams get to the Super Bowl, I wouldn't be stunned.
No, they're running the ball. Like Kyron Williams, since he's come back from his injury, incredible. They can beat you in the air. Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua. And you know what? Aaron Donald can just turn it on.
Yeah. And, a Rams rookie who, between the ones that do get the credit, Corby Turner, who's playing next to Aaron Donald at DT, he's got 9 sacks on the year, which is the same amount as Aaron Donald got as a rookie. I think he's third or fourth favorite for rookie of the year now, defensive. He's not going to get it because it's come too late and he's a third round pick. He's not got the same hype. And I'm not saying he's replacing Aaron Donald in any way, but because it helps being alongside Aaron Donald, obviously. Yeah. But man, getting a rookie in the third round who gets 9 sacks as a DT.
I mean, they've hit, haven't they? Third round, fifth round. It's and do you imagine what they're going to do now? They're going to start getting first round draft picks again.
I was going to say, imagine if they've taken the draft seriously for the last 5 years. They might not have lost the game. Yeah. They're bringing up Puka Nacua from the 5th round, Corby Turner in the 3rd round. The guard, that's name I always forget, has had a great year. Yeah. And they're very much a team to be reckoned with. And Sean McVay, I think, is still Sean McVay is still the youngest head coach in the league, I believe.
Yeah, it's another great job. Possibly his best year, I think, just because of off the back of last year and what they've done, which is mild considering in 2021 they won the Super Bowl. But best year, I think. Let's move on then. This is the last game that we haven't talked about really. The game itself, Cowboys, Commanders. Cowboys just kind of got to the second quarter and they just ran away with it, didn't the Cowboys? And it wasn't a contest in the second half. It was a bit tetchy first half. I got my wish. Brandon Aubrey missed a kick. Then he missed another one.
Yeah, I did like when Scott Hansen and the commentators, and felt like all of Twitter was saying that's his first real miss. The first one was a block. That's a real miss. It's like, all righty, well, let's just he's got them out of his system by now, because I don't really want it lingering into next week.
Yeah.
And it was also the most points ever in a season for a Cowboys player. Brandon Aubrey.
Yeah.
Emmitt Smith had the record with 150, I believe. And which, I mean, speaks to Emmitt Smith because the rest of the list is kickers, as it pretty much always is for players. Yeah, Emmitt Smith in, I forget what year it was, 94 maybe, had 150 points. So however many touchdowns that is, I guess. I don't think he was kicking field goals. Yeah, and Brandon Aubrey, a rookie soccer kicker, has came in and took that record in his first year as a professional football player.
Yeah. Nice, good job. Yeah. But yes, let's just get a nice easy one next week, and just get him kicking successful field goals again. I mean the story. Cowboys had a pretty dominant game. Lamb, Pollard, I thought did better. He's starting to look a little bit better. So hopefully that continues. Prescott had outside the interception, had a solid game. And just again, 38-10. It was what you expected from Dallas. Beat up on a poor team. Commanders on the other side of things, they as expected, fired Ron Rivera earlier today. Ron Rivera, nice. They finished 4-13 on the season, and what little hope there was going in the Commander season in terms of, we've found a guy in Sam Howell, and it's just all gone, hasn't it? Yeah.
I found it interesting as well. I don't know if you've seen Logan Thomas's comments about Eric Bieniemy after the game.
No.
Where it's like, we have clashed heads a lot and there's been a lot of ups and downs, but he comes in the same way every day, and I have to respect that. And it's like, if I'm Eric Bieniemy and I want a character reference, I don't think I'm going to Logan Thomas for it, because that doesn't read like someone who's a good man manager, should I say. Not to say Eric Bieniemy is in the wrong, but I think, it's been looked over for a lot of jobs, Bieniemy, and it's always, none of us are in these rooms when the interviews are happening. None of us know Eric Bieniemy. And there always seems to be like this thing of like, well, it must be a racial thing because he's a Chiefs OC, Matt Nagy got a job, Doug Peterson got the job,
Yeah.
Why doesn't he get a job? It's like, maybe he's a bit of a jerk. Maybe he doesn't, have good relationships with his players. Again, I don't want to say that that's true, but the Logan Thomas statement was very... I find when, especially at the end of the season, when players or coaches make statements about their colleagues, you just need to pay attention to the negative stuff, because everyone throws flowers about everybody, and it's always, he's such a great leader, he's such a great guy, he's such a great quarterback, he's this, he's that, the other. It's the negative stuff that I'm not going to say is the only true things, but I think the negative stuff always carries more weight to it, because that's the stuff that you don't hear.
Yeah.
So for Logan Thomas to come out and say, like, there is issues and we do butt heads, it's not a huge negative, but just the fact it's not being said as like, I've loved working with Eric.
Yeah.
Means there's something he wants to get off his chest.
I think the thing is, Bieniemy, it just seems because he keeps going in these interviews, so he clearly does want to be a head coach.
Yeah.
And he needed to come out of Kansas, I think, because he's just never going to get it at Kansas, and he needed to prove kind of something somewhere else. And I think it was a good spot. And actually, for the first half of the year, you're thinking he's actually doing a pretty good job here with Sam Howell.
If they'd sacked Rivera midway through the season, he'd have got the coach job, and he'd have got a trial run at it.
Yeah.
And I think because the second half of the season's gone so badly.
Yeah. I think it's one of them things as well where, because obviously the Chiefs' offense has gone a bit downhill, and it feels like they're not on it. It feels like they're just like this is small, points where the wide receivers are making the wrong route or things like that. And I wonder if like that's what he was good at. And he might be a head coach of a team which is a good team of and players who have got that kind of attitude where they don't mind getting shouted at and having that kind of coordinator, while other teams who the players are not as good and they're not as that kind of responsibility, or responsibility is probably the wrong word, but that kind of attitude might, like you said, might butt heads. So it might just be how it's more the meshing is like Washington, the kind of team where he's going to take forward and the young players and players he needs to improve. Is he the right head coach there? Rather, is he better at a team where the players are already elite and he's making them stay elite and keep at that level? And when there is players who are not performing as well, he could be like, well, Kelsey, Mahomes, they're doing that, so you need to do that too. Well, Washington, you can't really be like, oh, he's doing that, so there's like no one there. He needs to take someone up to that level first off, and he might not have that coaching ability.
It's a different sport, but like it's one of the things I always absolutely loved, especially when he was more of an elite manager, was Jose Mourinho, because he knew who to boot up the arse and he knew who to hug. And you can't just be, I'm the arse booter.
Yeah.
Because it wears thin really quickly because not everybody wants their arse booted.
Especially when you're losing.
Yeah.
Yeah, Washington going to be are in with that number 2 pick, so they, I think, no doubt take a quarterback. Whatever Chicago end up doing makes that decision for them. So it will be Caleb Williams or Drake May. I just can't see any other outcome. And probably May's probably the more pro-ready one, but they've got a quarterback out of the University of North Carolina already in Sam Howell. So it is interesting one if they choose to go that route again. And then we already talked about the Bills against the Dolphins. Bills secure the AFC East on the number 2 seed. Me and Joe were on the Bills -3. Byron took the Dolphins. Joe secured the ATS picks competition. The winner, well done, Joe. 4 games clear of Byron in the end, and I was a further 5 games back. I made a late surge, but
145 clear with the guests.
145 clear of the guests. Well done, Joe. They should make a donation. Yeah.
5 per game.
Yeah, 5 per game. Yeah. Yes. Well done, Joe, on securing that, and we will have something for the playoffs. Another little competition. So hopefully for parity's sake, I win that one. Moving on. Should we have a quick look at Fantasy Game Day? Our winner this week. I mean, how did we not think of putting this lineup together? By the way, Fantasy Game Day. Incredible. Roster secured 233 points. CD Lamb as captain, which I think 50 odd of the 120 odd entrants had CD Lamb as captain. Also stat with Prescott and Ferguson, which is what we did. But then tagged in with Connor, James Conner, who had a huge game. White again for the Raiders, who was really cheap, and also a game he just needs to touch. I think a great option for fantasy if he can just start finding the end zone, because that's 3 of the 4 games he started where he's gone over 100 scrimmage yards. Amon-Ra St. Brown over 100 yards and a touchdown. Justin Jefferson, who had a huge game for the Vikings. Slayton and Ferguson mentioned to have Jefferson, Brown, Lamb, and Prescott in the same lineup.
It's not bad. Did you hear the fact about Jefferson? That he managed to get 1,000 yards just playing 10 games. And 2 of them games he went off injured during the game, which is just crazy. I can't remember when it was, but the last time someone did that, it was back in the 60s, 50s, getting 1,000 yards within 10 games or fewer.
Yeah. And it's just mad, isn't it? Just to think kind of what the Vikings are probably 1 or 2 games out of the playoffs and missing Cousins and Jefferson for so long.
I was going to say, if they kept Kirk Cousins in the playoffs, Justin Jefferson's done this without Kirk Cousins.
Yeah.
I mean, I love CD Lamb, but Justin Jefferson is the best wide receiver in football. Yeah, CD Lamb is probably 2 right now, but Jefferson's just remarkable.
Lamb above Hill?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, interesting. But yeah, great roster selection. So well done, whoever you are, Silver 1496.
Quick shout out as well, and I'm annoyed that we didn't think about it. Because we talked about James Conner on Thursday. I'm annoyed that I didn't say when we were talking for our lineup, we should force James Conner in there. We never even talked about or mentioned Darius Slayton. In the last 4 weeks in fantasy, he's a number 8 wide receiver. He has been so good down the stretch, and he never gets talked about. He never gets credit. I mean, he's a number 8 wide receiver in the last 4 weeks. That is insane. And once again here, 62 yards, 5 receptions, and a touchdown. Great call. Great shout to put him in. And yeah,
I guess Slayton and White, he's what's freed up the funds ultimately to be able to get kind of the superstars in, and it worked out. A great strategy. So congrats and well done. Fantasy Game Day will be continuing into the playoffs. So if you've not joined yet, keep your eyes peeled for the playoff game, Sunday Stars or Playoff Stars, whatever the guys are going to call them. Go download it from your App Store, Google Play Store. You can still use promo code COVER. Go use it, please, because you'll get a free game, a free entry after your first play, so you can use that over the next couple of weeks. It's promo code COVER, all in capital letters, and it's only $7.50 an entry as well. So it's not as if you're getting ripped off either. It's a great price, and we've had a lot of fun with it over the course of the season, and we're gonna have a better year with it next year, I think. But we'll see if we can make some money during the playoffs as well. Bets for the week. Should we just have a quick run through of those? I had a good week, gents, but how did it go for you?
Yeah, not good. I had Trevor Lawrence for most passing yards, which definitely didn't come in. I just wanted to look up how bad one of my picks went, because I don't think it could have gone much worse. I want to see how many yards the guy got. So Austin Eckler needed 110 scrimmage yards, and I thought, hey, it's a game that doesn't matter. Maybe the Chargers will just do him good and pound the rock. Let's just go Austin Eckler, 40-1 to have the most rushing yards on the Sunday slate. He had 10 carries, 3 less than Easton Stick. He got 11 yards. Didn't hit, if that wasn't obvious by the implication there. Calvin Ridley done all right for me. I had him to get over 100, 110, 120 yards. He got 106, and there was a slight overthrow that, Ridley should have come in with, to be fair. It was slightly... He had to stretch for it.
Yeah, but, that was a touchdown, wasn't it? Yeah.
That was a touchdown, that would have got over the 120. That would have made it a profitable day, because they obviously longer odds of longer yards. And I had Davin Chan to go over 100 yesterday. And I think he had 50 at halftime or 56 at whatever he had at halftime.
And that's all he had.
And that's all he had because they were like, oh, we've done running for the season. We'll see you in the playoffs. So that was a bit of a bummer. But yeah, no big hits.
Yeah, I had a bit of a stinker this week because I backed the Eagles and Seahawks in my treble. So obviously didn't go well. Hit on the Rams and 49ers over 40 by 1. And then in my Browns Bengals, I thought that was going to be a low scoring, similar to the AFC North one, but didn't hit the under. My anytime touchdown, I was super close. I had Wicks, Lockett, and Elijah Mitchell, but all hit. But Dallas got it. Obviously didn't, which would have been, if that came in, would have been a nice way to end the regular season. But with Jalen Hurts, and it felt like they just brought everyone out because the Giants steamrolled them, that, didn't get a chance to even get a touchdown. So
yeah, the Sirianni White flag. Yeah, I had a pretty good week. So where did I finish up? So Steelers -3 against the Ravens, Titans +5.5, Lions -3, Buccaneers -4, Packers -3, Raiders -2.5, and Bills -2.5. So that's that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, 7 and 5. I finished this week, and then on my props, I went for some of the contracts. I went heavy on D-Hop. He didn't make it, sadly. Well, he made one of his incentives, or 2 of his incentives, sorry, but not on the lines that I backed him at. But we had Henry rushing milestones over 50 yards, -115, over 75 yards. He ended up like 140 yards, didn't he? So those were a couple of nice cashes. And then, I had 2 anytime touchdown trebles. I had two out of the 3 in each one. So I had Gibbs and Hall, missed Mike Evans, and I had Lamb and Connor and missed Aaron Jones. How Aaron Jones didn't get a touchdown. He had 20 odd carries for 130 odd yards. So that was annoying. But yeah, pretty good way to finish the season. Definitely up, and I think close to that magic 54%. 7 and 5. Yeah, would have just hit 54%. So I am 82, 71 and 4 on the season. Not bad.
Nice. I know my season was profitable. Just because I ran through the accounting with my wife a few weeks ago, and I was like, "Oh wow, it really was a good season." But I don't track them in terms of that because like so many of mine are like the longer shot, 20-1 weekly winner, and it's like you're gonna lose more than you're gonna win. But when they win, they're gonna be, a better outcome. But yeah, the percentage will be a lot worse. I haven't tracked the percentage, but.
Yeah, Joe, this is going to be another one of your jobs when we get to the second full season of good teams and great teams cover, because we need to be completely transparent. Get that sheet up. Everything goes like funnel needs to go on the sheet.
Joe doesn't have enough extra jobs.
Yeah, no.
Jeez Louise.
We'll take some off you, so you can do that, and then I'll take something off you to balance it out.
Do we trust you to take that over, though? That's the question.
All right, it's to be like that. That brings us to the end. I can't believe I'm saying this. We
haven't done winners and losers.
So shit, yeah. Shall we do not winners and losers of the week, but winners and losers of the regular season?
I mean, I don't have those prepared, but
we could do both quickly.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, the large is the same anyway, right?
Yeah. So let's start with the week then. Joe, your winner of the week?
Well, my week and year is the same. It's anyone connected with the Houston Texans. I think what they've been through the last 3 years before this, DeMarco, they've got a great head coach. One of the best rookie seasons ever, quarterback for quite a long time. So, the Houston Texans are the winners, week 18 and the year.
Nice, good shout. Byron, winner of the week and then winner of the year, if it's not the same.
It's not the same. My winner of the week, I'm just going to give it up to King Derrick Henry.
Nice.
Goes out with a banger, gives his statement to his fans, and then, I don't know if you've seen him, he was out signing autographs for hours outside the stadium as well with his fans, and I just think there's very few, I don't want to say icon, maybe too strong, but he's been the spirit of that team for so long, and has been so good for so long, and he's obviously beloved. And it's going out in such the right way. I just think that's to be celebrated because not many do. For the season, I'm going to go for Detroit. Anybody connected to the city of Detroit again. First home playoff game in 400 years, I think it is. Hopefully they get to stick it to Matthew Stafford and his Super Bowl next week. And yeah, just delighted for the people of Detroit and Dan Campbell and his team.
Yeah, that's a good shout. Mine could probably be combined, but yeah, I might as well just to save a bit of time. I'm gonna go for Jordan Love and the Green Bay Packers. I think it's been a bit up and down, but they've really come through in the end and managed to secure a postseason berth, which I think is I wouldn't suggest that was expected. He's had so much pressure on him, been sat. He's been on the end of stuff that hasn't been his fault. Sitting behind Rodgers, it's not been pleasant for him, but he's obviously stuck at it, and he's been developing and working, and we've seen him play to such a high level. I think he's done a great job. And also shout out Matt LaFleur as well. Funny watching him have some temper tantrums on the sidelines at times yesterday. That was really funny, but done a good job leading that team. And I think the fact that they've got to the postseason is a great achievement for this team. Very young team. The future's bright in Green Bay, I think.
Youngest team to ever make the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. Losers, Joe?
So loser of the week would be the Jags. Obviously, everything what's happened and just going out with a whimper against the Titans. And there's only one loser of the year for me is the Panthers. I think they've just had a disaster of a year. There's probably nothing gone right for them. And I can't see the next few years doing much. I think all the optimism, especially coming from certain sections of this podcast, is it's not looking like that now. So it's bad year for the Panthers.
Bad year, sad year. Byron?
Joe's nicked my picks. So I'm going to go, my loser of the week is Nick Sirianni, because from, see ya to the Chiefs, because nobody can hear you anymore. They are now 2-5. Season is capitulating. Team is falling apart. They might not beat the Bucks in the playoffs, and he might get fired a year after making the Super Bowl because he's that toxic of an asshole. Even Philly hates you. My loser for the season is obviously the Panthers, but I'm going to throw a second loser at Brandon Staley from being head coach of one of the most attractive positions in football. I think obviously the Chargers ownership aren't the best backers, but they were paying plenty for their players. They had a loaded roster. Some people had them winning like 12, 13 games, and absolutely sacked it away. And I think he threw away all his goodwill along with it as well by being so petulant and striking out with the media when, it's you that's the problem here, mate, not the media asking questions of you. And I don't know if he'll ever get another head coaching gig because it went so sour so quickly.
Yeah, that's fair. I would say so. At least I'm going to go for, even though they're in the playoffs, actually, the Dolphins just looking such a bad spot. Mike McDaniel, the Dolphins looking at a terrible spot. They had that division. They had that division in the hands, and they've just absolutely blown it. And I think they're in trouble heading to the Chiefs next week. And the season, it's got to be Big Bill, hasn't it? It has to be Big Bill and the New England Patriots. Everybody connected with the New England Patriots. Matt Jones as well. It's just a disaster of a season. Awful for New England. And I expect by the time we get together to do our playoff preview, wildcard preview, that Bill Belichick will no longer be in the building. So just a sad way to end things as well, I think. And when they've been so successful, but just real sad ways. And oddly reminded me of kind of how Brian Clough went out at Forest with them getting relegated a little bit. It's kind of really sad. Just waited to see it happen because plenty of stick and plenty of ill will towards Bill because of what's happened over the years there. But it's just kind of sad now. That's my loser of the season. That's it from us. We'll be back we've got like a mini bye, which is great, like 3 or 4 days time, and we'll do our wildcard super I keep forgetting it's called Super Wildcard Weekend, our Super Wildcard Weekend preview for the playoffs. So in the meantime, if you're not already, give us a follow. We are we're 997 followers on Twitter now, so let's just get it to 1,000 because it's just irritating me now. So here's a follow on X at GTW_GTC along with YouTube. TikTok, we had a Charlie pick. I'm sure we'll get plenty of Charlie picks from the playoffs. And Instagram, where you see all our bets posted. And also, Good Teams and Great Teams cover on Spotify, where you can listen to the audio version of the podcast. But for now, gents, we'll see you in the playoffs.
Cheers, see you later.